That I know what's really going to interest a lot of kids back home. I want to hear the best save you've ever made in a competitive first team match. Paul.
I'll start with Tony. I'll have to think about that.
Okay, go on, Tony. That's a good sign if you have to think about it.
It is.
Unfortunately, I don't have to think about it.
For me, a lot of people assume what they think I'll say is my best save because I made 2 saves in the European and the UEFA Cup final in 1984 for Tottenham Hotspur. But the best save I ever actually made, in my personal opinion, was playing for Tottenham against Brentford. And it came in about the last 5 minutes of the game. We were drawing 0-0. And it was a bit disappointing from our point of view. And a corner came in and someone volleyed a ball. And it was just an instinctive reaction save. And we just managed to tip it over the bar. And got a standing ovation as we walked off the pitch, and that was a really nice feeling. And that sticks out as probably the best save I've ever made in a competitive match.
Also, I can imagine the repercussions of Spurs losing that match.
Yeah, although there wasn't a great deal on it that day, but you still when you play for Tottenham, you're still there to be shot at, if you like. And to lose to teams like Brentford when you're playing for Tottenham is not a nice feeling.
No, the press would have been very quite feel there.
But it's just strange that people ask me a question and they say, what is your most memorable match, for instance, or your most memorable save? And they try and answer the question for me by saying it was the UEFA Cup final, wasn't it? And it was the 2 penalty saves that you made, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. The most memorable match I've ever had was my debut in a North London derby against Arsenal. And as I say, that save for me was probably the best save I've made in competitive football.
What about you, Paul? You come up with one.
Well, it's the same as Tony said. You pick out the saves. I mean, that might to everybody else just think look like just a normal save.
Actually, yeah, you're right about that. I should have phrased the question a little differently. I should have said the most satisfying save you've ever made. Which, as you're saying, doesn't necessarily have to be one that everyone else thinks is so spectacular.
I think the best save I made was against Blackburn. Bristol Rovers, and I was caught in the middle of my goal, and the ball came across, got deflected out as I was hit the ball first time. I've managed just somehow to fling myself to the left and tip it around the post. But still, like the most satisfying save for me was in the playoffs, which we needed to win for promotion, and it was in the last minute. We just scored to go 2-1 up.
Who was that against?
Wrexham. And a ball's been knocked into the box, and it's bobbled around a little bit, and it's gone to a player 6 yards out, and he's hit the ball. And so I've managed to get my body in the way. It wasn't a pretty save, and it probably wasn't a very spectacular save. But if it had gone in, we wouldn't have got promotion. So to me, that's more satisfying than any other save that I've probably made, because it meant that we got promotion, and we're in the 3rd division. If I hadn't made that save, then we'd still be in the 4th division.
Now I do want to ask you about that night in 1984, Tony. I'm just going to give you the floor on it and just tell us about it. There are a lot of people back home who don't know about it, and so with that in mind, talk about it.
It was a very special time in my life, really. I was quite a young man at 21, and I was playing for probably one of the biggest club sides in British soccer. And in my opinion, and obviously the manager's opinion, playing very well because I was keeping an England international out of the team. And fortunately, from our point of view, we reached one of the 3 major European trophy club competitions. And it was a real special night because we'd done the hard work from our point of view by going to Anderlecht and drawing 1-1 away from home, and come back to White Hart Lane, and the atmosphere was very special. It was I think it was 50,000 at the ground, and it was really busy, and there was an electric atmosphere that night, and it was just a great buzz. The adrenaline was pumping and everything like that. And to be fair, on the night, over the 90 minutes or the 180 minutes with the extra time that we played, Anderlecht in the second game with a better side. They played some lovely football and scored a really good goal, which at that stage I thought that we was going to lose the game. We managed to score an equaliser. The game went to penalties, and from there, I mean, I was very lucky. I saved the very first penalty kick of the night. Then everyone else scored their penalties up until Tottenham's last penalty, which Danny Thomas missed, which meant there was one penalty left for them. And fortunately for me, I saved it. I mean, if it was in a magazine or a comic strip, it couldn't have been written any better to save the first penalty and the last penalty. It was great. It was really brilliant feeling.
Was that Morten Andersen?
Morten Andersen, I think, took the first penalty.
The first one,
and
yeah.
a fella called Aaron Gudjonsson, an Icelandic player, missed the second one. I mean, obviously, from his point of view, he was devastated. But
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't feel no sympathy for him when I saw him laying in the goal now.
No, you couldn't.
At all.
He had the odds in his favour, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, it was great because I was a star for a little while, I feel like. I quite enjoyed that. I think it probably came too early for me in my life.
I was actually going to ask you that.
Because I didn't really know how to handle the pressure that came after that, and I sort of got myself into, if this is going to be watched by young children, I got myself into some silly situations that I was too young to handle. And if it happened to me now, I probably would be able to cope with the situation better. But then having said that, I wouldn't change it for the world. I loved every minute of it. It was great.
It was some night. I didn't see it live. I was in America at the time, obviously, but a friend of mine has it on tape, even now.
Yeah.
And the reaction of the Spurs fans behind the goal,
yeah,
on both the penalty saves.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Unbelievable reaction, even more than as if a goal were being scored at that end. It was even a bigger celebration.
Yeah, it was. I think
really
because
magic.
the sadness of Danny missing his penalty, I think.
Yeah,
Danny over the 2 games has been Tottenham's best player, and for him to miss the penalty was so unfortunate for him. And I think the crowd were not so much disappointed, but were very sad for Danny. And I just remember Danny walking past me as I was going back into the goal, and his head was in his hand, and there was all tears in his eyes. And it looked like the saddest face that I'd ever seen in my whole life. And then within 30 seconds, it was the happiest face. It was such a strange night. It was brilliant.
All right, this isn't so pleasant a question to ask, but I hope you'll humour me and answer it to the best of your ability. Every goalkeeper makes mistakes. Obviously, you two being at that end of the table, being full-time professionals, make fewer than someone like myself, who is at this end of the table asking the questions. But if you could go back and replay one moment in any game, in other words, if you could just do it again, not to experience a good emotion again, if you could make one mistake up, have you got one in mind that you could tell us about?
Yeah, I think it would probably be the game at Port Vale that we was just talking about. We played Port Vale away in an FA Cup game when I was still at Tottenham, and they scored 2 goals that day. That the second one I felt was more my fault than the first goal, but I got a lot of criticism on the television and from the papers and everything like that for the first goal.
Now, I was here in England. I watched that match on television, and I remember the criticism over the first goal. If I recall it correctly, it looked as if you were, I wouldn't say impeded, but you went for a cross. Seemed to be a 50-50 ball, and there was quite a bit of contact, wasn't there?
That was on that goal was I just shouldn't have come for the cross, which looking back on, that makes it more of a mistake from my point of view. The goal that won in the game really, it was just a long hopeful shot from about 20 yards, and we was playing in some awful conditions that day, and the guy just hit the shot, and for me when it left his foot, it was just going to go miles over the bar. And I didn't really follow the ball in its flight, and the wind got a grip of it and it dipped down under the bar. And at the time, Port Vale were a 3rd division club and we were a 1st division club. And to get knocked out in the 3rd round of the FA Cup was not a good feeling. And especially when you're sitting in a dressing room after and you've let 2 goals in that you probably could have done better on. So it was.
Paul?
It's got to be the season when we get game promotion by the playoffs. It was a time when we could have got automatic promotion, and we needed to win every game, and we won every one by one, and I made a mistake in that one game which cost us automatic promotion. Same sort of thing, a long hopeful ball to come over. I've come to just gather it's a simple to gather a shot. I've taken the half the ball to look at the forward coming in, and it's hit my knee, hit the forward on the shin and trickled in the goal, and we lost 1-0. And it's not a worse feeling, because the next day in the papers, in the local papers, it was all about heel googly could cost us dear, and I'd only been in the side say a few months, and to see your name up in the press is costing your team promotion, and I was only 19 at the time. It's hard, but luckily, I didn't let it bother me too much. I thought, instead of going into myself and saying, well, that's it, I can't do this anymore, I said, well, I'm approved, I'm shown that it's not the end. And luckily, I played well in the next few games, and we got promotion in the end. But that was a bad time for me, because I thought if we don't get promotion this season, then everybody's going to look back and point to that one incident which could have cost us promotion.
But that is the one thing about goalkeeping for any young up-and-coming goalkeeper, that if you do go on to playing goal, it's a very thankless job. You get very few times in your career where you're actually praised very highly. People will always pick up on the goals that you should have saved, the mistakes that you shouldn't have made, but you very rarely get the pat on the back for the save that when you might be winning a game 1-0 and you make a save and you go on to win that game 1-0. Without that save, it could have been a 1-1 draw or whatever. And you very rarely get the praise for helping the team to win that game. Sometimes it's thankless, but I think myself and Paul, another guy called Perry Suckling, with the coaching that we do with Alex, is I think we give each other our own praise. We know how hard it is to play in goal, so we give each other our ego trips, if you like, by me going to watch Paul play and telling him that I thought we played really well, or vice versa. So we get a lot of credit from each other, which is a good boost for us, really.
But we don't hold back on that. If we think somebody's made a mistake, we do tell them. But we don't.
We do it very constructively.
Yeah. But we don't harp on about mistakes. You sometimes hear us being very jolly and having a laugh and a joke about mistakes, because I don't think there's any reason
to lose your confidence.
After the incident, to take it seriously. If you know what you've done wrong and you know that it's a mistake and it's down to a technical error, then you know that you've got the ability to put that right. So we have a laugh and a joke as well. It's not because we don't take it seriously, because if you take it too seriously, it can affect your game. So we take it in a sense and do have a laugh and a joke about certain things. And we do pull each other's legs sometimes. Like Alex sometimes.
Especially Alex, because he's got very short legs, so we're trying to make him a bit taller.
We do pull each other's legs, and we do have a
fit into his David Seaman underpants that he wears.
And we just find it's a better atmosphere, and it just breaks it down, and we're all a little bit closer. I think we're not.
Yeah.
If you keep it too professional and don't talk about things, and have a good laugh and a joke, and have a go at each other about certain things, then it becomes too formal. It's very relaxed atmosphere that we've got between us.
It's a very, it's really an international union, goalkeeping is, because I've even found myself, I've gone to clubs, first Brentford, where I had a long nightmare when I was under 6 weeks, and then I was at Dunfermline Athletic in Scotland last year, and even coming in as an American outsider, I found that I got on very well with goalkeepers and was very well received by them, and I've made a very good lasting friendship with the Dunfermline goalkeepers, who still send me gloves, which is a very good material side effect from that. But yeah, as you say, everyone seems to know that it is thankless and difficult.
Yes, definitely.
There's a few though who are very hard to get on with.
That does
sometimes
happen.
you do meet people and you think can't deal with him.
You find yourself occasionally rooting against, pulling against the goalkeeper. I mean, I've been in situations in America where a job is at stake and money is at stake, and yet in training matches leading to ultimate team selection, you still find yourself pulling for a goalkeeper if everything is right.
Sure.
Whereas in other situations, even if there's not much at stake, sometimes you seem to find yourself not too disappointed that he's dropped that cross.
There's only a few really, I think.
Yeah, that's rare.
I think it's well known. I think there's a lot of players in football that sort of look at goalkeepers and say, what is it with this lot? Why comes they all know each other, and why are they all always shaking hands, and why are they always doing this and this and this, that and the other? And I don't think they can appreciate, because they're, especially centre forwards, get loads of praise and that type of thing. And goalkeepers sometimes are the only people that can praise goalkeepers because they know how difficult the job is.
That's a good point.
But when you think about, when you look at the squads, I mean, there's at the most there's 3 goalkeepers to a squad of players, and then you're looking at 20. And if you're having a bad time and all those people are on your back, I mean, it's not like if you're a goalkeeper and you haven't got your defence and things, but when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, then you've got 10 other people on that pitch who all blame the goalkeeper. I mean, so you're very isolated when you're on the pitch. So I mean, you need your friends. So it's always nice to have friends around, especially with goalkeepers.
Oh, that's great. I have to ask you this question again, I'm afraid, because I think we've missed it through my lack of knowledge of this particular camera. But I want to ask you one more time about when you were growing up and goalkeepers you admired, and what you admired about them. And Paul, you were telling me it was Peter Shilton.
Yeah, like I said, I used to go and watch him with my grandparents at Stoke. I used to live at Stoke for quite a while. And I always had an ambition of meeting him and being like him. Like I said, as you're growing up, those ambitions soon start to take a back seat to your own ambitions. I mean, you want to become a good goalkeeper, you want to be better than them, and they become rivals. And so, I mean, as you grow up and things like that going, you always admire goalkeepers. I'm not saying you don't admire people, you always admire people and great saves, and you look at their strengths and weaknesses, and you try and adapt it to your game, but you never try and lose your individual style. That's when you do start having problems. If you try and be like somebody else, it might work for them, but it might never work for you. Because Tony's got some styles which I like about his goalkeeping, and I try and build into my game. I try it on a training field, and there's some bits I have picked up. There's other things that if I try, I'd probably make a real passion of it. So I mean, you learn some things, but other things you just look and admire and leave it alone and just say, oh, that's Tony. And just try and be your own person.
And Tony, you were telling me Pat Jennings.
Pat Jennings. When I was a boy, yeah, Pat Jennings, I think loads of young kids used to look up at Pat Jennings. He was so unorthodox, if you like. If you are a goalkeeper, you couldn't ever learn anything from Pat Jennings, because he was just a one-off goalkeeper, if you like. I mean, he made the most unorthodox saves.
A lot of saves with his legs, didn't he?
Loads of saves with his legs, which people, I think at the beginning of that period when he started making saves with his legs, people sort of labelled him a little bit lucky, but over a period of like 10 to 20 years of keep on doing it, it was like obviously not luck, it was something that worked for him, and the one-handed cross, and he was just world-class goalkeeper, and I loved him, and I was fortunate enough to be at Tottenham with him for a short while when I was a young lad, which was brilliant. But then, as admiration for goalkeepers took over from hero worship as such, was when I started working with Ray Clements, really, because I thought at the time he was at his peak, and I thought he was the best goalkeeper in the country. And although Peter Shilton went on to have 125 caps, I think that should have been Clements' record and Shilton's record, because I think all round he was a better goalkeeper. In my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree with I have to agree with that. And for once again, for people back home that are uninitiated, Tony and Ray were at Spurs for quite some time together, and there were on more than one occasion, for extended periods of time, you kept Ray out of the side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of that fact, that I can always say that, we played in a European game against Austria Vienna, and Ray wasn't too happy about not playing, and he went to knock on the manager's door and told him that he was fit, and the manager said, well, I'm sorry, but all I can do is make you sub. And that was brilliant for me as a young lad, because it gave me so much confidence and that. But the good thing from Ray's point of view is that he never ever held that decision the manager made against me. He would come out and he'd put his arm around me and said, well, you're playing and good luck to you, and hope it goes well. And I always knew that he meant that. I knew it wasn't sort of, we was just talking about the goalkeepers. Yeah, I always knew it was genuine. It was genuine encouragement. And I had 6 years with him, and I probably don't think that I'd have gone on to play the games, or I don't think I'd have had sort of been as half as good a goalkeeper as I think I am without Ray Clements.
But that's some of that I missed, because when I was younger, I really did struggle. I was looking to get an apprenticeship, and I just scripted as a pro, because I really had nobody, like Tony was really lucky, I had Ray Clements, Pat James, like I said, and they really helped him along. But I really had nobody, and I really had to struggle. And it's not really until I came down here that I've worked with Alex and Tony and Perry that I've had something to look up to. And when I first came down, I found it quite hard, because I wasn't a young lad. I was, well, not like I wasn't an apprentice. I was a professional at the time. And I was sat there and thinking, that's Tony Parks, that's Perry Suckling. And I found it a little bit hard to relax at times, because I'd not been used to being around people, whereas Tony had been used to it from a young age, and he's grown up with it. And so he slotted into it when it came to his debut at 17, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. He just slotted into the team and felt natural. But I felt quite uncomfortable at times when I first came down training with Tony and Perry, because I thought they were at a different level than me. I thought I was down here and they were up there, and I felt intimidated. And I'm really lucky that I've trained with them now, because I don't think I'd be intimidated anymore. Because if you're not used to having well-known faces and that around you, then it can be intimidating and make it hard for you. Just even if it doesn't matter what ability you've got, if you haven't got it inside, you can't handle being around well-known players and playing in big stadiums, then you're going to find it hard. So I think it's been a good move for me to train with Alex and Tony and Perry. It's really made me self-confident, and I think I could handle it.
Yeah, watching the session today, I was very impressed. I thought it was not just good technical work, but a very good camaraderie between the four of you that were there. And
apart from the coach.
Apart from the coach, of course, yeah. The four of us, I should have said. The four of us and the coach.
The coach is a bit of a slave driver, as you saw at the end.
I did see that at the end. Right, and you both had very, very long days, I know, with your regular training in the morning and then the goalkeeper specialist session this afternoon. So I want to ask you one final question. I want to sort of give you a free rein. It's going to be a very broad question. I hope you can interpret for me. But young goalkeepers, just some general words of advice for them, covering whatever sort of topics.
As a young goalkeeper, I always felt that people were always telling me that I was never going to be good enough to play in goal as a professional because I was too small. I had that criticism levelled at me so many times.
How tall are you now, actually?
5'11". But I stand very hunched up and that type of stuff. But I always had that levelled at me when I was a young lad. But in a way, that drove me on to prove people wrong. And I think, I'm better at certain things. Obviously, Paul being at 6'2", 6'3" is going to be, and he's probably one of the best goalkeepers I've ever seen taking crosses. He looks so majestic when he comes out to take a cross. It's brilliant to watch. But there's parts of my game that I've got over him, in certain areas. So I think in a way it evens itself out. But I don't think that young children should take it to heart that because someone is saying you are not good enough because you're not tall enough or because you are whatever. You should just sort of, as long as you've given yourself the chance and you feel at the end of the day that you've worked hard enough, and you might go home one day and you might sit there and you think to yourself, well, I'm not good enough, but I had a good go at it, and I'm happy with myself for doing that. I think this tape's going back to America, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And I'm very impressed. I've been to America a few times, and I love the confidence and the self-belief in American people. And that is really what, you know, that I had to put into myself, because people were saying to me that I wouldn't make the grade as a player. So I was very proud of myself when I did. And I think in general, it's just not to listen to what everyone tells you about, you know, take the good points and try and sort of decipher the bad points and the good points, really. Just have general belief in your own ability.
Yeah, that's all I mean, we can't say anything else. Just be yourself, don't try and be anybody else, don't try and be the Peter Shillings or Ray Clemences. If you've got natural ability, then just let that shine out, and just keep practicing your good things and keep them ticking over nicely, but also keep on working on your bad things and try and get them to scratch with what you're good at and try and make what you're not so good at equal to what you're good at, and just keep trying. It doesn't matter what people say, like Tony says, just keep going, because not everybody can start. I mean, there's a lot of goalkeepers and a lot of players who, when they were younger, were turned away. I mean, Lee Sharp, for example, I mean, he was turned away from many a club. I mean, he went for trials and things, was turned away,
clubs, yeah.
and said he wasn't good enough. He went to Man United, they gave him a chance, and now he's playing First Division football at 19. So, I mean, a lot of people make mistakes on judgment, and people develop later, so as long as you keep going,
Yeah, if one person
self-belief.
says you're not good enough, that doesn't mean to say that you're not good enough, does it?
I mean, you go around to different managers and you pick one name out of the hat in the Football League and ask them for their opinion on that one player. It'll change. When some people think he's the best player, maybe might think the best player in the Football League, others might think he can't even kick a ball properly. So it just depends which, on opinion. So just if you think you're good enough and you want to keep trying, don't just listen to one person. Keep trying and have the enthusiasm to keep playing, because you can always play at some level. There's always some level where you'll be good enough to play, and hopefully you can go all the way and play at a professional level.
Well, thanks very much, both of you. Tony Clark's Fulham and Paul Heels, Leighton Orient. It's been a great little talk, and I really enjoyed watching you both train this afternoon, and I've enjoyed watching Tony play before. I haven't had a chance to see Paul play yet, but in my month remaining here, I will definitely like to get the chance to. Thanks a lot once again. It was great.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll just have a conversation with the camera on us. Pretty informal. Just get uncomfortable with us together. Alright, we're back again. This is Alex Welsh, and Alex is a member of he's a staff member of the Bob Wilson Goalkeeper School, and he's done a lot of goalkeeper coaching, and he's currently coaching league goalkeepers like Tony Parks and Paul Heald, who we just talked to. And he's also worked with Hans Segers, the Wimbledon goalkeeper, who's a fantastic goalkeeper. David James, the giant Watford goalkeeper, among others, and he's soon to start working with Southampton goalkeepers, Tim Flowers and Ian Andrews. For Alex, I've got a lot of technical questions. Alex right now has always been very well known as one of the best communicators from goal. There's two ways to play goal, isn't there, Alex? You can stand back on your line and try and make saves, or you can play the way you play and the way professional goalkeepers should play, and you can describe that.
Well, it's proactive rather than reactive. You can prevent certain things happening by organising your defence well. And basically, what it involves is limiting the number of shooting opportunities that the opposition has and the number of crossing opportunities. And if you can do that through good organisation, you've succeeded, because ultimately your job is to keep the ball out of the net. Now, if you can arrange that without having to take a cross or a save, so be it. And for me, through good communication and doing that, it's less of a risk than having to rely on your ability to make a save or take a cross. It might seem boring to the spectacular goalkeepers in this world, but for me, it's about being effective, which is important.
Let me ask you this. When I first began playing in England, I got a lot of criticism from my manager for not talking enough. And looking back at it now, I can see the reason why that is. And it's the same reason that almost everyone watching this tape has. The teams that I was at in America and the teams that these kids are at, they don't have somebody to work with them in goalkeeping. They don't have people that know enough about them. So now I will tell them, and they'll see this, and they'll see the importance of talking, but how do you improve on that?
Talking, or let's be more specific, communication.
Communication, yes.
It's one of the things which is very difficult to coach, and it's one of those things which comes with experience, and one of those things which comes with an increased understanding of the game. What I've done for my goalkeepers is provide a vocabulary list of situations when we're in possession and situations when we're not in possession, in the hope that some of these key phrases will rub off and they'll really use them in the football context.
Let's hear, it'd be very helpful, I think, we could hear a few of those.
I've got a card somewhere here.
You got a card somewhere here?
I'll dig it out.
Okay.
Well, basically, as far as communication is concerned, it's when, what, and how. Now, the when of communication is always early. If you give communication late, then it means people have less time to react to it. The what has got to be specific, concise, to the point. It's got to be relevant for that situation. So